Okay. Amitofu, we start with a bow and the recitation of the four great vows. Bow, recitation of the four great vows. I vow to deliver innumerable sentient beings. I vow to cut off endless vexations. I vow to master limitless approaches to Dharma. I vow to attain supreme Buddhahood. Welcome to you all. We're going to continue on with the first chapter of the 8,000 line sutra. Again, this is kind of what you might say is the granddaddy of them all in terms of the Mahayana sutras. This sutra has been expanded all the way up to 100,000 lines and has been condensed down to 35 lines. Uh, it is something that you have some experience with it with respect to the Heart Sutra, but here we're getting more meat and bones on the marrow, which is the Heart Sutra, to be able to expand one's understanding of what the Mahayana practice is. So we're going to continue on. Ask Santa if she can post up the uh, next to the last page. And we're going to be on paragraph 22 or verse 22. As I indicated to you, that this um, sutra was in verse and in writing, and what we're actually um, seeing here is the verse form. So in this part, it begins, thus transcending the world, he eludes our apprehension. He goes to nirvana, but no one can say where he went to. And when he's referring in this male form, but he's referring to a bodhisattva or a Buddha and saying, and no one can say where he went to is important because of the fact that if we say that one actually went somewhere and then there was some kind of a dualistic uh, uh, transcendence, such as one from becoming a uh, a cocoon to a butterfly. But in fact, neither the cocoon or the butterfly is uh, exist or doesn't exist. It just belongs to mind in accordance with causes and conditions. So we cannot say where he went to means that it's correct. It can't be said that there was anyone that went through and went to samsara. And so the next part goes, a fire is extinguished, but where do we ask, has it gone to? And again, here is a reference to nirvana and blowing out the light. So when it's saying, so this is the translation of nirvana is the extinguishment of the fire, but here we see and say, where does it go to? And saying where has it gone to is the same thing. And it's kind of saying you can't say something is real when it really isn't in that way. And so then we go to the next line. Likewise, how can we find him who has found the rest of the blessed? So all of this is showing there is no personality, ego, or life in being. So the next part comes and says the bodhisattva's past, his future, his present must elude us. Time's three dimensions nowhere can touch him. So again, so they're saying as to a personality or an ego or a self, there is a question, is there anybody there? No, not we can say that there is some essence of cognition that one can say is truly a Buddha or calls themselves a Buddha, nor can it be found in past, present, and future when everything of the one returns to its true nature. There is nothing to distinguish it either way, whether it exists or it doesn't exist. And so then the next part is hold on. Time's three dimensions nowhere touch him. Quite pure he is, free from conditions, unimpeded. This is that is his practice of wisdom, the highest perfection. And again, referring to Anyatara Samyak Sambodhi. And because we're using words, there's a reference to one in a masculine form and two in a mortal form, such as he or his, but it doesn't really apply here. But it's difficult for us to call mind and say, mind is going anywhere. It doesn't even make any sense. But we use the convention of speech here, but it isn't necessarily that there is anybody going. And that's the hard part for us, because we kind of get stuck on reading the convention of words, and we think there is someone that goes from one place to another. And so as a result of that, we get fixed in our head. We have to conjure up notions of some kind of an enlightening experience, some kind of a transcending experience. But it isn't in this way. That which is mind is beyond any kind of conceptual notions or things. There isn't something where there is a person whose mind is settled and is cognitively observing all of this. The perception of mind is not the same dualistic perception of subject and object. It is an instantaneous, infinite extension of awareness. And so it's difficult for us because we set on a course to want to perfect this body, perfect this mind into some kind of a perfect state. But it doesn't work in that way. And we'll get to Huang Po a little bit later on, who also is espousing this particular position in more detail. So then we get to the next part. Wise bodhisattvas, coursing thus, reflect on non-production. So reflecting on non-production, and I have in my notes, a mirror facing a mirror. If you imagine a mirror facing a mirror, which one is the mirror? Think about this. Which one is the image and which one is not the image? Two mirrors facing each other. So if there was something that was put in between the two mirrors, which side is the correct side of it to be seen? These are contemplation points, not something for me to explain to you, but to let you see there's non-production. Because as we look at it, we cannot say that reflection in the mirror is not part of mind. It is part of mind, but that reflection of the mirror also belongs to the mirrors. So it cannot be lifted off of the mirrors, where would it go? That is the same thing as when they're saying, that these dimensions, the times three dimensions, don't touch him. Where did he go to? Where would he go to? You can't slip outside those mirrors. It's very important for us to be able to contemplate this, because this is the essence of our practice. But it's difficult because we oftentimes are not presented with this and slow it all down. So when we slow it all down, then the mind speeds up because the obstructions in the mind are removed, and the mirror can reflect the mirror surface perfectly. And those appearances that are appearing in there are simply mind. There may be what in this world to be something that is pure or sacred, but it's neither. It is just in accordance with causes and conditions. Mind doesn't measure things in this way, and mind does not grade things in mind in an illusion. If one was to be a great servant on earth, yet every night they would have bad dreams, would you think that their production on earth was good or bad? They produced very, very well, but maybe their dreams were bad, but you cannot measure their accomplishments based on these dreams that they had at night. Again, this is just an analogy to try to give you something to try to take a look at, and to be able to see this from a different viewpoint, which is the perception of mind itself. So then we get to the next line, and it says, and yet while doing so, engender themselves with great compassion. This is this not what the Heart Sutra is all about? And is this aspect of the great compassion is difficult for us to understand. And it's something that is not easy, because we will say, well, if you don't exist, I don't exist, the Buddha doesn't exist, nothing exists, and what it's all about. And then we tend to the nihilistic. And if we go the other way and say everything is real, nothing changes, then we go to the eternal. And so then we're seeking the eternal in terms of a soul and a transmigration of a soul into becoming a Buddha or going to nirvana. Mahayana school said, well, hold on a second. This contention doesn't hold water. If you say that everything is real, then nothing changes. That doesn't make sense. And that's not really the true understanding of emptiness. Emptiness extends far beyond that in terms of that to the infinite. And it isn't the emptiness of something for the lack of something, but for the totality of it all. But if we look at it and we say, well, because all of these things are appearing, they're all appearing in mind, they're real, but it doesn't hold. It doesn't make sense, because if it was real, you could never change your mind. You could never change and go from point A to point B, from samsara to nirvana. Can you say that you've done that? Or people have done that? Where would they take that first step in mind? In which direction? That's why the masters were always saying, there is no path, because they didn't want you to hold on to the idea of some kind of a samsaric direction on which to go. And yet we do that, and we try to perfect this body and perfect this mind. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with the 37 factors of enlightenment, or the 6 paramitas, the Eightfold Path, the 5 precepts, the 3 jewels. But the only difference is all of those are simply non-produced reflections in the mirror. When they are seen in this way, that there is nothing that comes into being or goes out of being, that it is just the thusness of the mind without a spatial or temporal location. What is left for us to hold on to in this world? But while seemingly, let's say, negating samsara, it doesn't really negate samsara as much as it says samsara is created by mind. It's a temporary illusion. But what remains after all of this and this non-production is, while doing so, while practicing in this way, they engender in themselves great compassion. This engendering is actually not really even a proper word, because it's as if saying that great compassion comes in. But it is not that it is that the great compassion comes in, it is that it is realized that great compassion has always been there from the very start, and that is the essence or the thusness of mind. So we go to the next page, please. Okay, if we can focus in a little. There we go. Thank you. Which is, however, free of any notion of a being. You see, so they're very careful to say this act, this compassion is free of some kind of an ego, personality, life, or being. And I put there contemplate this. How can this happen? How can mind have this quality or characteristic of compassion? It is there already. When we talk about engendered, it is actually the discovery that the mind is naturally compassionate as a component of mind, as its function, as it works in the way, and it's represented in the unbridled compassion of Guan Yin, such as why we use Guan Yin in the Heart Sutra to represent this Anyatara Samyak Sambodhi wisdom by changing the perception from the skandha to the perception of Buddha mind. And then it says, thereby they practice wisdom, the highest perfection. Doesn't really sound like, where the Heart Sutra pulled this out of. So they practice this wisdom, this highest perfection. So this highest perfection of wisdom is not wisdom that I am practicing this or I am doing this. It is simply the realization that everything is mine. And the realization to the extent that one is no longer caught up in the vestiges of greed, hatred, and ignorance. We're clearly aware, moment to moment, what is arising, why is it arising, what will happen from body, speech, and mind in that. This is the practice of wisdom. If you accord your practice in this way, you will not be far from it. As long as you do this, then the mind will be pure. When you step off of that, then that's when the thoughts come back in and you slip back into samsara, the world of birth and death, the world of joy and suffering. So the next verse, but when the notion of suffering and being leads him to think, suffering, I shall remove the wheel of the world, I shall work. So this wheel of the world is this prosperity, this contentment, this joy, and say, I I, Gilbert, make this vow to remove this from the world. I shall work in this way. Beings are then imagined. A self is imagined. The practice of wisdom, the highest perfection, is lacking. So why is it lacking? What is missing here? Doesn't that sound right? I vow to deliver innumerable sentient beings. But this is important because this is why I always emphasize, and I probably should do it in our opening as well to remain consistent with this, is I vow to deliver innumerable sentient beings of self-nature, cut off vexations of self-nature, limitless practice of self-nature, attain supreme Buddhahood of self-nature. Then this is correct. This is the proper way of seeing things. So when we go like Don Quixote fighting windmills and trying to pick them up and say, I will pick up this world, I will purify this world, and all of these. It isn't necessarily a bad attitude, but it's a mistaken attitude in terms of the fundamentals of Mahayana practice. He wisely knows that all that lives is unproduced. I think that should be are unproduced, as he himself is. He knows that all that is no more exists than he or any beings. So when we see this, we understand there is no lives that are unproduced. If we did that, we would say, okay, well, this life that I am taking your life away, and in this transcendence, you are unproduced. So you no longer cease to exist. That doesn't quite fit, does it? It doesn't quite make it right when we say, okay, well, I'm going to deliver these illusory sentient beings and of a self nature, but then they're unproduced. Are they produced or unproduced? Have they been produced? And so Mahayana bangs at that and says, come on, answer right now. Answer this question. Answer it. Are they produced or unproduced? As he himself is, he knows, and again, we're using this he, which we should be saying if we said, mind wisely knows that all lives are unproduced as mind is, would make more sense. Mind knows that all that is no more exist than mind or any beings. The unproduced and the produced are not distinguished. Here, then, we get away from the idea of existence or non-existence. This is what we say is the extinguishment of existence and non-existence. Existence and non-existence is kind of like a conundrum that you have right on a paper and say, I exist. And then you write on the other side and it says, the one who's reading this page does not exist. And you just keep flipping it like this. But you can't get a solid answer out of that. But that's what we do in samsara. we're constantly doing that and going, well, do I exist? Do I not exist? You know, you don't exist. But Shifu, I can see you, but I can't see you. And then you scratch your head and say, what is he talking about? I don't understand this. How can that be? If I can see the master, why can't the master see me? Which one is right? You're right. You have to get off the carousel. The carousel is a cycle of samsara, just constantly changing, and it's moving so quickly you cannot understand. But because it moves so quickly, it appears that there is movement there, that there is a life, a being, a personality, an ego, when such is not the case. But it does not negate that those things appear in mind. If it negated that, then those things would be something outside of mind. So when we say the unproduced and the produced are not distinguished, it's not saying that unproduced, it doesn't exist, it's nihilistic. It's saying that those two things are not two things. They're just simply appearances within mind. And if everything belongs to mind, there is nothing that we can call separate from that, whether it's existence or non-existence, you or I. It's demanding that you look at this. It's demanding that you resolve this in this moment. Don't go to the next line. They're daring you. They're telling you, don't go to the next line until you can accept this in your heart. Don't go to that next line. See this clearly. What good are the words? You can read them, you can say them, you can quote them, you can do anything. But if you don't practice it, it won't work that way. That's why they were saying before that the practice of wisdom, the highest perfection, is lacking. The practice of wisdom, not the intellect, but the practice. So the practice of that is seeing this as it is. It's not easy. We have to let go. If we can let go, it will work. You have to have faith in mind, faith in the Dharma, faith in the Buddha, faith in the instructor. Practice in this way. So then they say that is the practice of wisdom, the highest perfection. Okay, that is. So everything I was telling you, I'm showing you how you see this and how you look at that. We don't see it from a cogitating viewpoint or a viewpoint from a personality or an ego. We see it from mind itself. And so, again, this is the refrain from the previous verse, but in a positive way, saying that that is, where the other one is the practice of wisdom, the highest perfection, is lacking in verse 25. In verse 26, seeing that things are not produced or produced is the practice of wisdom of the highest perfection. Pay attention here. It's right there before your eyes. This is the way we penetrate the sutras. This is the way we go to the profound. This is the way that the esoteric is uh, is communicating in mind. So then we go to the next line. All words for things in use in this world must be left behind. So when we say all words for things in use. The most important part of this is it's not just simply words that they're talking about concepts. If I have a green highlighter, it is a green highlighter. And if I use it, it will highlight in green. So we see this and we say, this is this way. If we use it as a tool, it's okay. We do not say, I like green, because green means it's really, really important as opposed to just yellow or red. It's just a tool. So words are a tool that we operate in this world. But we do not hold those. We understand that they still are part of the dream world. We have to leave it behind. All words for things take it up to the highest level. Nirvana, enlightenment, they're just words, like the highlighter. They belong to samsara. If there was no samsara, there would be no need for nirvana or enlightenment. Think about that. And I shouldn't say think, but contemplate that that's exactly what they're saying here. If you don't hold on to anything from the samsaric side, there's no need to talk about them. There's no need to identify them. They're not talking about the green highlighter. They're talking about nirvana, enlightenment, and suffering. There is no suffering, no cause of suffering, no cessation of suffering, and no path. Why? Because mind, the thusness or suchness of mind. We can't understand that. We try to understand it. We don't know how to practice. We have to let that go. Okay. Give me a second. He moved the page, so I'm okay. So it says must be left behind in this world, must be left behind. All things produced and made must be transcended. Very interesting, right? Because we say, well, they're talking about transcending, so there has to be some kind of an enlightenment. There has to be a transcendence to that. But is it really in this way? The transcendence is not the cocoon to the butterfly or the worm to the cocoon to the butterfly. It isn't in this way. Originally, there was no worm, no cocoon, no butterfly. It is just mind. The transcendence is simply the mind realizing that these appearances are erroneous appearances in the mirrors. That for some reason, due to causes and conditions, in particular Samapada, appear to replicate and propagate an obstruction in the mirror. A partial obstruction, it cannot obstruct anything. We were talking before, Mina was saying that she saw the eclipse, right? And everything got dark for a moment. But in California, it didn't get dark. In China, it didn't get dark. Only this little narrow strip going across the country got dark. The rest of it was perfectly bright. But if you were in the path of the moon and the sun, and there's eclipse, it got dark. And you'd say, there is no light. Of course, there's light. Just causes and conditions brought about the idea of this obscuration. But we understand that. We're no longer in the medieval times, except for one politician that forebode that this is a sign of God, that is punishing us or whatever. But other than that, we don't cling to things like that. We see those as natural causes and conditions and circumstances. And But it's temporary. The sun did not disappear. It never disappeared. Never, never once did it disappear. Just this tiny, tiny, tiny little grain of sand in the firmament temporarily blocked the radiance of the sun. And it is this way with the Buddha Dharma that we see the things. Now, if you're underneath the obscuration of the sun, how long did that last? 4.5 minutes? To you, to your dogs, perhaps it's like a half an hour of their lifetime in comparison, or to some fly, half their lifetime. We don't understand that. But if we expand out, and then we can see how minuscule this phenomenal occurrence was, and how infinite the mind and space is. And space is still within mind. The deathless, the supreme, incomparable gnosis is then one. So when we put these down, this deathless, there's no birth, there is no death. The supreme, Anyutarasam Yaksambodhi, incomparable gnosis. There is that word again, gnosis. Know this gnosis word. Gnosis is very, very important. Gnosis is this direct experience of something. Back 2,000 years ago, at the time of Jesus Christ, there was a group which were called the Gnostics, and they were believing that there was this connection with God in this way in terms of Gnostics, and they were very, very close to Chan in their practice. But because it didn't fit in good and bad in terms of understanding things, then it didn't make the cut in the final Bible. And so it's too it's not easy to package, we could say. The same thing with the Gospel according to Mary Magdalene, which was very close to Chan as well. And because it was Gnostic, there was this kind of a feeling of that one has to have the sense. The only way that we can have this gnosis is by putting down the idea of an ego, a personality, life, or being. When we put that down, doesn't mean that it disappears. If a policeman stops me and they ask me, who are you? I can't say to him, that's a good question. Who are you? No, I have to show him my ID. I don't want to go to jail or get beat up. So the thing is that we follow in accordance with here, we understand that, but we also understand that this is all an illusion, a dream. When we practice in this way, we don't run away from reality or life. We run directly into it and see the machinations that bring forth all the things that happen. And so, although this is an illusion, it's not an undecipherable illusion as to why things happen the way they happen. We can see those things that are happening and their causes, their roots, all the way back, and we keep going back to the roots, to roots, until we get to what? Ignorance. When we get to ignorance, then we understand this is the root of all the formation. And so you want to hold on to this root that was rooted in ignorance. This world appears in ignorance And we so much want to do it. We comb our hair, dress up, do everything, make ourselves look nice, right? We're still an illusion, a snap of the fingers. And again, I'm just bombarding you with this to try to get you to see how you look at these. By the amount of marks on this page, you know this is not the first time I've read this. That is the sense in which we speak of perfect wisdom. So that's how we speak of perfect wisdom, saying the sense of it, not necessarily the meaning of it, but the sense is this gnosis, direct connection, direct contemplation. When you sit to meditate, it is mind meditating in mind on mind. Not bad. If you stay there, you're not far from it. You're not going to go along for the ride, but then again, what's left is much better. You're the dross. You're not the gold. When free from doubts, the bodhisattva carries on this practice. We have to keep reminding ourselves moment to moment to moment that this is a dream. The only way to win the game is not to play it. Of course, you still have to go to work. You have to make money. You have families. You've already complicated your lives. It's okay. Life is complicated. But we still see things as they are. We still can do that because deep down inside of you, you have this compassion. It's pre-packaged into everything, and it's more DNA than your DNA. Because we're not talking about the DNA of your body, we're talking about the DNA of your original face, your original nature. You already have that. What you don't have is the you. And you go, I don't know about that. Well, you'll never know about that. It's okay. But you have to keep going. You're feeling sometimes as if you're swimming against the current and you're seeing everybody else going the other way. Where are you going? I'm late for work. Where are you going? Whatever you're doing. No, you have to still render unto Caesar's what is Caesar's here, but not in a foolish way. You don't play the game. You are temporarily dwelling in samsara, but this is not your home. You know that in your heart, not your home. As skilled in wisdom, he is known to dwell. And then that's the next line. This is what I was telling you. You're known to dwell, but you don't really make this your home. So the dwelling place of a bodhisattva is everywhere. Wherever you go, this is where you're dwelling. But you're not really dwelling there. You're dwelling in mind. All dharmas are not really there. Their essential original nature is empty. So all phenomena is not really there. It's like Shifu used to say, oh, it's like hocus pocus, like a magician. Hocus pocus. It's not there. Their essential original nature is empty. Not like an empty glass, empty of any independent nature. If it had an independent nature, it would be real. But it's not real. Sariputra, it's not real. It's empty. It belongs to mind. You have a sack of sentient beings. And this bodhisattva gathers them around and puts them in the sack to protect them. And later he looks in and they're all gone. They've all expired. They were never there to begin with. They were empty. It is in this way. We in samsara cannot understand that. Doesn't make any sense at all. I think, therefore I am. And so we're self-proving. How do you prove yourself? Because I hit my head and I can feel it. But you're self-proving. I can hit the table and I still feel it. But the Buddha still feels all of that. To comprehend that, to comprehend what I've been talking about, to comprehend this is the practice of wisdom, perfection supreme. It's telling you, there it is. Voila, tada, it's there. We gave it the best shot in the very first chapter of the 8,000 line sutra. There it is, right for you. If you get it right now, you stop. You don't have to read the rest of it. But if you kind of get it, it's probably a good idea to keep reading, to study it. But don't read it like you read a novel or the newspaper or some technical manual. Read it with your heart. Feel it. Contemplate it. This is how you penetrate the sutra. You see, it's totally different. You don't go to the next word until you understand the meaning of the word that you just read, the import of that word. Let's see, where are we at? Oh, I never got to Huang Po. So next week, we will start talking about Huang Po and how he interprets this, because clearly he picked this up very well. So the time really flew, but that's good. I hope that you obtain some kind of a gnosis from this and practice in this way. So that will be the end of the lecture, and then we'll continue on with questions. Thank you. Yes, Sam.
Amitofo, Gilbert. It's very good to see you. I unfortunately wasn't able to catch the whole lecture. I'm at work right now, but I was able to take my lunch and catch at least half of it. I just wanted to acknowledge, I really found it very profound when you were saying how to realize samsara is a dream, it takes away the fear, or it allows you, the practitioner or who we really are, to be fearless. And how you pointed out, it's not to turn away or to forget about it or to, leave and go to nirvana or whatever, but it's actually the material that allows us to go straight back into it, to run right towards it, and to go back for these other beings. So I just wanted to thank you for sharing that and for this lecture today.
Thank you. Each of you will have some piece of this that will hit you, and some of it will hit you later on. I try very hard to try to get you, showing you different facets of the diamond to penetrate. So that's good. No, the sincerity of listening is very, very important. So that's good. Okay, anybody else? Nobody today? You guys are all have understood this completely? You're leaving me here by myself today? Wei Shan.
I think Ben is before me, Gilbert.
Oh, was he? Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
he is. It's funny because on the screens it was different. So we'll go to Ben first.
Okay. Thank you so much for the talk. When you said that the words, they're part of the samsara, yet they're a useful tool, yet they're still part of the samsara. And then last week, if I may recall what you said about the two swords, one sword destroying the other sword. So um, can I relate that to that passage that words themselves, even though they're the sword, they're part of the samsara, you can use it as a tool to destroy the samsara?
Okay, was there a question there? I missed it.
Oh, I'm asking if that interpretation might be correct.
Oh, the interpretation. I didn't quite follow you.
Oh, so uh, last week you had a passage saying that when you have two swords, you can use one to destroy the other sword. So
Yes.
is that kind of like what you're saying, and then analogous to what you're saying to when you said that words themselves are part of the dream world, but you could use it as a tool to destroy the dream state. Is
Yes, I
that
think
the?
that that's a good way. That was from Huang Po, and Huang Po was saying, they were saying, well, the two swords can't destroy one sword can't destroy the other one. But yes, it's that way. We use the conventional means to practice. So we practice here, but the point in terms of the practice is that while we practice, we're mindful about how we practice so that we still are not trying to polish the tile to make it a diamond. So we have to cut that tile, shatter any kind of idea that we're polishing the self. And so we use the conventional means within samsara to create this platform for us to be able to to uh, to it's difficult to say, to transcend, we'll call it transcend the idea of samsara and just simply realize mind. So yeah, it is in this way. So that's
Okay,
correct.
okay, good. I just wanted to make sure I got it right. Can I ask another question,
Okay,
or if
go
there's?
ahead.
Yeah,
Go
okay,
ahead.
okay. So you said that the unborn and the born are indistinguishable. Is the unborn, can that be I know there's this like analogy of saying that there's the clay and you can make the clay into an ox, and the ox is the born and the unborn is the clay. And so no matter what you mold the clay into, the clay itself is the same. So can you interpret unborn as sort of something like a potentiality, like how a seed has the potential to be a acorn has the potential to be an oak tree. So is that what the unborn is?
No, no, this is what was the admonition that was in that verse was that we don't try to destroy one thing or create another thing. When we say that the born and unborn are indistinguishable, we also say that they are distinguishable. We can't just say they're indistinguishable because then that would give the born some form of a reality that is not the unborn. The unborn was never born, so it cannot be that. The born is part of mind, but it's a phenomenal part of mind. And that's the part in which this verse was cutting and saying, cut this. You don't cut mind, you cut self, ego, all appearances from that, including this born and unborn, but we don't throw it in the dumpster. There's not a cosmic dumpster where all of this goes into. It all is still in mind, but there's never the reason that it's easy to cut is because it's a dream. So the sword of wisdom cuts so easily through the illusion. It's like you have a cup of coffee. Now, the very famous in this day and age where you go to some bistro and somebody there, some barista makes a cup of coffee for you and puts the cream on and it makes a heart, right? In the coffee.
Yeah.
Hopefully it'll work like that. A heart, Korean style. Okay. This is Chinese style. Okay. Is there a heart there in that coffee? You mix it up and it's gone. Sometimes you may wait a long time. I don't want to move the coffee because the heart's going to go away. But no, the heart was always there. It was neither born or unborn. Causes and conditions gave it an appearance. But it still belongs to the coffee. The coffee does not belong to the cream. The cream belongs to the coffee.
Okay.
I'm using very conventional, easy ways to show you, but I think that will be able to show you how mind works. Okay. So
I think I understand the born part, that there's a phenomenal arising when it's bundled together. It appears as if it's an independent entity when it's not. In this case, what is the unborn? Is the unborn then the entire thing?
it is what the master said. I think it was Ling Chi said. It is the no thought, the no of no what. No
No.
what. No what. Your question was, what is the unborn? Master Hui Neng said, there's no what. Work on it. Come back next week.
Okay. I just didn't hear what you know what.
Yes.
Know what?
Yes.
Okay. I'll contemplate it. Thank you.
Delete the K and the W.
Okay. I'll contemplate it.
N-O.
Right, because I just didn't know whether it was no as in know something or no as in yes
Like,
or no. So
like no thought. No thought is the no of no what.
oh, okay. I see. Okay. I'll contemplate it. Thank you.
Okay. All right, Wei Shan. Well, now we get to you.
Okay, Gilbert. The last paragraph of the lecture, this 8,000 line sutra, the Bodhisattva directly say all things are not really there; they're empty. And my question is when the practitioner seeing the nature experience happened, is that the direct experience of that claim, all things are not really there and they're empty?
It is due to the causes and conditions, that aspect of mind which has been obscured suddenly no longer has obstructions. It is not the practitioner that realizes, it is mind realizing mind. It's a very important distinction.
Oh, and the practitioner.
Do you follow that? It's a very,
yes.
very important. We cannot say the ego realizes anything. Gilbert has not realized anything. Gilbert has not gone anywhere. Gilbert is going nowhere.
Yes.
He's the know of the what. But that which asks the question is unborn. And so this is the way we see it. So we see that the mind just in this little corner of this streaking of the eclipse, all of a sudden he stepped out of that and no longer thinks that it is just that way. If we were to say that the sun was eclipsed and that 4.5 minute time period was actually um, 4 kalpas, and it can be in some ways, then they would never know that you just simply step out of it and everything is clear. Okay. I'm just kind of throwing some stuff there at you, like just to, so that if the ego's trying to dodge everything, it's one of we say in Spanish, chanclas, one of my sandals will hit you.
But when the Bodhisattva say all things are gone, that means ego is gone. Understood that. And the mind seeing the mind, that means the self, like you always say, is not there. You will not be there when it happens.
Exactly. Now it's starting to fit in. You see, that's all those little things that I say, and then they start clicking in together. That's how it works. It's just like a tumblers where they go like that, click, opens up. Good. Okay, Suzanne. Unmute yourself.
That's better. There we go. Amitofo. I have listened to all the questions. Question seems more whimsical. If causes and conditions conspire that my spirit engages in reincarnation and continues on the Mahayana path, and I don't come back as a human, what is my path?
Based on what you're telling me now, you might probably come back as I'll bite my tongue. In terms of that, you probably won't come back as a Buddhist. You'll have to circle around a while before you come back as a Buddhist. So there's no transmigration of souls. There's no one that dies and is reborn again. Like some kind of a glorified zombie that comes back in this way. We talk about past lives, but it's simply a current in the ocean. There is no little corridor or no life in that ocean. It's just a current of karmic flow. But that karmic flow is only in the path of the eclipse, not in the rest of it. It appears that it's dark, but it's not really. It appears that there's a self, but it's not really in this way. But the mind is confused, and the mind has a fear. Well, I want to come back. I want guarantee. Okay, I give you the lifetime guarantee. You're coming back, but you're not going to come back as Suzanne. You may, knowing you in your heart, you probably end up in the heaven realm. But that isn't necessarily the best place for you. No, if you use your heart, your great heart, you can come back into the human realm, but it's not you that comes back. It's just the current within the ocean that moves in this way. In fact, that current does not truly exist, nor does your soul or anything like that exist. That's why Master Ling Chi said that he searched for 12 years for this thing that they call karma, and he couldn't find anything even the size of a mustard seed to call karma. Karma then is something that would happen to some sentient being, but in fact, that's an illusion. So if you practice in this way, then you can guide yourself into the next lifetime from your heart where you want to be, from your vow. But it won't be like, wow, Suzanne, you look so much better. You look younger, you know, or whatever. It's not going to be that way. It's different, but it depends on your heart where you go.
So
but
this is why.
I'm sorry?
I was going to say this is why the present moment is so important. Yes?
Quite so. Quite so, because this present moment matters via body, speech, and mind. And it creates the direction of where the mind goes, where the heart goes with everything. So that's good. So if you practice in this way, it will work very well for you. Okay. So, okay. Any others?
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. We still have time for some last minute ones. Nobody? Okay. I thought I'd have a lot of questions today. Really put it out there hard for you today to try to get you to feel this. Yes, Michael.
Hello, Gilbert. When you were talking about the Gnostics, and you said they almost got it, I was thinking about religions in general, and I mean most monotheistic religions, they are plenty of wisdom, and in the mystical branches of these religions, they are kind of not so far away from what we talk about in chant. So of course they lack the notion of no soul and not self, so which makes a big difference. But just practicing in these other wisdom traditions, I could see how there's a type of stable pattern which is set into motion and which may come back quite a long time. And if it's coupled with ethics and moral conduct and wisdom, it doesn't necessarily navigate one into heavenly realms or hells. It can just keep you in the human realm. What do you think about this?
Well, the thing is that wisdom is wisdom. Buddhism doesn't have a corner on the market on wisdom. Wisdom is there, and as the sutra correctly stated, was the wisdom is in the practice of what you practice, not what you say, not what you think. It's demonstrated. And that's what's important. We have to always remember as Buddhists, we demonstrate. And thank you for your question, because it's one that helps, in terms of this. And when we do this, this is how, when I talk to people from other faiths, I make the connection with the wisdom from their own religion. We don't use our religion to protect us from somebody else's religion, or this is absolute ignorance. And it reminded me of a very funny story of two boxers. They were in the prime of their lives, and one of them was Joe Frazier, and the other one was Muhammad Ali. And Muhammad Ali was a Muslim, and Joe Frazier was a Christian. And so when they went into the boxing match, the Muhammad Ali said, "I'm going to win today. My God predicted it." And Joe Frazier said, "Well, your God's going to take a beating tonight." And in fact, Muhammad Ali did take a beating that night. And it is not the way that we present religion or present our religion to others. My God can beat up your God. It isn't in this way. We try to cross the ignorance with the use of wisdom. That's the only way we can do things, and in this way we can make headways. We, for us to fight over a rocky terrain, to fight for oil, or fight for this and create borders, it is the ultimate of samsara. and creating these kind of borders that don't exist. But yet in the mind of people, they exist. The mind of discrimination, my skin is dark, therefore I don't like people with light skin. Kind of reverse it for the moment. No, it doesn't make any sense. You peel off the skin and the color is the same. And so when we see things, we use the wisdom as much as they can handle to do that. But yeah, it is in this way that the Gnostics, and if you study Christianity, I probably know more about Christianity than most Christians and their historical background. And you see that they left a lot of wisdom on the editing floor back in the 400 CE, and which was kind of a shame. From the fragments of Mary Magdalene's gospel and Judas's gospel, they were very, very Gnostic in their ways. But again, that it didn't fit the purpose of what they were doing. But nevertheless, the Bible has wisdom in it, as does the Quran and whatever other ones in the Vedic religion. The Upanishads are filled with wisdom as well. We don't have idea that one religion is superior to others. We follow our religion, and in this way, I don't see Buddhism as a religion as much as a practice. And the reason I follow Buddhism is because of all the things I've studied today. It's the one that makes the most sense. It's one that if we say and take a nihilistic path and say that there is no God, or that there's no meaning to it, then something's lacking in all of this. But if we say there's a supreme God that dictates everything, something seems to be lacking there. So to me, Buddhism resonated to say its causes and conditions, but we can do something about it. And that's important. And that's this compassion that's there, that's not connected with a self. And that's very, very important. Thich Nhat Hanh once said, God is God when God doesn't think he's God. And a very interesting statement that he made. It wasn't an insult. It was just a matter of fact in terms of that, and to see that. If not, then the vanity of being a god or a jealous god then seeps through, and then one's not that good of a god. So we see things, and this is how we see the world in terms of this practice and this compassion that we spread to everyone and to all sentient beings. And it's not easy for us. I don't know if Robert's around. He killed a mosquito the other day, and he wanted me to give him absolution for it, for killing the mosquito. And I said to him that, the mosquito and him had the same mother. So there was a little Cain and Abel going on in there. But in any case, I'm digressing. Okay, any other questions? No? Okay, thank you very much for listening. I think today was something that is very useful. When I give a lecture, and it isn't one that I want to come off as some sage. What I want to do is come off as someone that, like going to mechanic school and telling you how to repair a car. And so if I do it right and the instruction is there, then I feel comfortable about that. I feel very, very much that I didn't waste your time and didn't waste my time in doing that. And that's what I felt today. So thank you very much for listening. This was, to me, a good one. So please take care. We'll